Hey everybody, it's Norm from Tested, and this is Gunther.
Hello.
From Tested, who usually works behind the camera, but I thought it would be fun to have him in front of the camera with me today, because we want to do a video about the current state of NAS storage. It's a technology that's been around forever. We've actually, a long time ago, like 7 years ago, did videos about NAS, articles. Will and I used to build our own NAS boxes.
It's a lot easier now.
It's so much easier now, and I recently got this guy in from Synology because you use a Synology NAS
Yeah,
storage.
I have the older version of this 5-bay model. A little bit older, basically the same thing.
Joey uses Synology, and actually we use an 8-bay Synology here in our Tested office as our primary means of file backup and media serving, because we run through increasingly more files, larger files.
A couple terabytes a month at least.
Absolutely. So we wanted to just talk about, I want to talk about my usage of this. This is the 1019 Plus, which came out this past year, some of its features and how we each differently make use of this black box of storage. So if you follow NAS, you may know that 1019 Plus is kind of an upgrade over the Synology's very popular 918 Plus model. It's a 4-bay NAS box.
The naming conventions are a little wacky.
I know, totally wacky, because it's not just about the number of drives, like 10. What does that mean? Because you only see 5 bays here, but apparently you can also buy a separate attachment that they have that gives you up to 10 bays of storage. But anyway, like the things that you're really choosing when you're looking at a NAS are really between the brands, like how many bays,
what sort of gigabit connection it has on the back.
Exactly, the connectivity, which includes the Ethernet and also USB, eSATA, all that jazz. Upgradability, and also it is a computer, right? So it has a processor and it has RAM. In this case, it uses an Intel J-class CPU. It's a Celeron, I believe, 3455, which is also the same one that was in the 918. So it's a very standard, cheap, low power model. So quad core, 1.5 gigahertz up to 2.3, and this one has 8 gigs of RAM, 2 DIMM models that you cannot upgrade. And also the interface, right? Because you're also choosing between this,
which is really important for me.
Totally important, because a lot of not only the front end that you use, like this Synology has like a very, very popular, very easy to use DSM software. It's like the web browser, you type in your bookmark,
opens up a OS style graphic user interface in your web browser that's really easy to navigate. And for me, that's super important, because I don't want to spend time connecting to some sort of command line interface. This thing takes all of the trouble away and just makes it super simple.
Totally, it's like drag and drop. You can do file access there, you can do bay management there, and you can also do backups and their packages. They have so many, the whole library of their suite of first-party and third-party applications that then let you do things like run your own cloud.
It makes it feel like it's using a regular PC, but really it gives you the functionality of a server. So you could host your own website if you wanted, run backups on all of your different drives and drives that you're connected to, backups to the cloud if you're using a service like Glacier with Amazon, or what do you use?
Well, I use Backblaze, and you can also use this and pump up to a third-party storage. It's just redundancy is kind of important. What I found interesting, because in my previous NAS boxes, I would build them up and I would put them in my server closet, right, where my router was, where I have a big switch, and that's where it kind of live. I never really touch it or actively engage with it. This is the device that I found that I have at my office.
Yeah, same with me.
Not because I'm swapping these, but because there's so much extra expandability. I'm always plugging in USB keys or plugging in a big USB 3 drive a work drive, right? That would use my laptop. I'm done with that. I need to back it up, plug it in, and it automatically can dump it onto this RAID.
What I find that's really nice is the Synologies can read exFAT, NTFS, what's it called for Macs, it's journaled. They can read all the different hard drive formats. So if you're working cross-platform, which we often do with different people, and you come to your home PC and it's a PC and you have a Mac drive, you can just pop it into this. It'll read it really easily. And then if you have a syncing application built in, it can just sync it easily to your drive on your main PC, which is how I like to work.
And that's actually how we use our big 8-bay Synology here at the office too, right? We have, it's full, like all the 8 bays are full and it's all redundant, but really our archives are like on big 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte, 6 terabyte hard drives that then are marked, and then when we need to access those files, we can just plug it into a hot shoe and then pull from that, and we have a database.
The Synology itself isn't big enough to host all of our files. It's just an intermediary to hold all of the assets that we use on a regular basis, important documents, and then any files that we foresee we're going to need to use within like the next couple months.
Right.
And then once we get to a point where we're done with that project, it's been published, everything's on the internet, we go to the Synology, plug in a G drive most of the time, archive everything really nicely, and then put it away.
And something like this, even though this 1019 is designed for like small office and home use, it's probably more powerful than a single person would need.
Yeah, if you're a power user, quote unquote, someone who's taking a ton of photos, if you're a photographer, videographer, or maybe even a small business, then I think it's right for you. But most of the time, for your average user, unless you love to watch like 4K HDR films and have a ton hidden somewhere in a random folder on your computer, this might be a good choice for you because you use yours for a Plex server, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not making use of 25% of the capabilities here, right? If you go through that package list, like I'm not running my own mail server, I'm not running my own version of Dropbox, but I am using it for a couple discrete use cases. Like you said, I absolutely use it as a Plex server. And for that, the Celeron chip in here does do hardware transcoding. So it can transcode, even in the software transcoding, just because it goes up to 2.3 gigahertz, it can transcode multiple streams, like 2 to 4 streams at the same time. H.264, H.265, even if you have 4K, it can do that. Now, if you pay for something like Plex Pass, that's their premium version of Plex, you get hardware transcoding, and that gives you much more power in terms of how many streams you can transcode at the same time. And a lot of you out there might be thinking, like, why would you ever need to transcode more than one video stream? Because aren't you just streaming to one TV? Well, I have housemates, and I also have other people who have my login.
It's like
for
a
Plex.
Netflix password.
Exactly, right? And now that with Sonic Gigabit Ethernet or internet at home, I have like Will gets access to my Plex, and I don't have to worry that he's going to be decoding a 4K file and watching at home. Then I can also watch it, and then also have someone in another room in my house watch it. And it can do, if you do hardware, you can do like almost 10 streams at once at 1080p, which is, it's kind of overboard, but just the power of Celeron on here. It's like not the newest chip, but it's plenty good enough. There's also a little bit of expandability. I haven't really used this yet, but this also, if you're using like this for databases, really big files, you can also upgrade with some solid state cache, NVMe, so M.2 drives on the bottom, and that's something that you can upgrade in the future, but of course you have to buy those drives as well.
That upgradability is nice. I mostly use mine, which is an older model, for syncing drives across my computer and the Synology. So I have a work drive set up on my main PC, and then there's a drive function on the Synology, mostly like Google Drive or Dropbox. It sees whatever I drop onto that and automatically starts syncing it to this, as well as a backup drive that I have on the other side of my workstation.
Yeah.
Takes away the headache, and you can use it just like Google Drive or Dropbox. You can send a link to someone and they can pick up those files if you want to.
So Media Server works great for that, great for backups and automating a lot of those backup and file management processes. And the one last thing I wanted to use this with is whether it would work as an active drive, working drive for photos. And so I moved all of my photos. I have like 3 terabytes of photos. I dumped on here and started using this via Lightroom. And you know what? It worked just as well as having USB 3 drives plugged in.
I do the same thing, and it works great.
It works great, and I don't have to worry because it will automatically back up those, and they have a hybrid RAID that they just automatically manage all of these. If I want to put in another drive in the future of any size, it will just not waste that space. Unfortunately, with the gigabit connection, even if there are 2 gigabit ports here, and if your router supports it, you can do link aggregation, which means you get 2 gigabit connection. That's still not fast enough for video editing off of here.
Yeah, you're gonna need a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection, which they sell expansion slots for some of their models with. It might come standard for a couple. but I'll be waiting for that to come standard before I make my next upgrade.
Yes,
For
and
sure.
that feels, it's a premium feature right now. It's on the higher end models. I wish that was something that was more standardized across all the lines. But as a media server, as a photo editing station, and as backup, I'm really happy with the 1019 Plus. You're happy with yours?
I'm really happy with it. Just remember that the golden rule is to have backups in 3 locations, and even though this spans your backups technically across multiple drives, you should always have another backup and then another backup.
It's always worth paying for, if you can afford cloud storage.
Absolutely.
Paying for that as well. And all of those systems now work in place because you never want to have a drive failure in the future.
Worst feeling.
We'd love to know what you do for your file management. If you use a NAS, if you build your own NAS, or if you have had experiences with Synology NAS boxes or other companies' NAS boxes, please post in the comments below. Or if you have questions about our production workflows, we'll be trying to share more of that in the future. But thanks, Gunther.
Thanks, Norm.